Hey babe, thank you so much for being here for our free Beat the Binge video training. This video is part one of a three-part series designed to give you insight and practical tools to overcome binge eating and begin the journey of healing your relationship with food. The reason why I feel like this is so important is because for years I struggled with an eating disorder. I was bulimic for many years, and through my journey of healing that, even after the purging had stopped, the binging was something I struggled with for a very long time after, like years after. And it took a lot of deep introspection, a lot of deep mindset work to finally overcome that binge eating, to actually feel genuinely at peace with food. I remember just like it was yesterday what it felt like to be consumed with thoughts like obsessing about food, to be pulling out my clothes and wondering what people are thinking about me and just never quite feeling confident or comfortable in my skin. That anxiety and the depression and the things that stopped me from living the life that I truly wanted to live. And that is not something that I want for you. And I know that if you're here, that's not something that you want for yourself either. So today, I'm going to teach you the very first model that gave me loads of insight and helped me take action to make my relationship with food transform before my eyes, almost like magic. As much as the things that I share with you are going to sound miraculous, it's still going to take consistency, it's still going to feel uncomfortable, and it's going to take diligence from you. Just like the seedling that you plant in the ground that has to push through the dirt, that has to feel uncomfortable and put in the work so that it can see the sun and get all of that goodness and blossom and shine, the same will happen to you. I want you to know that it's not going to change overnight and that it is going to take time and you will slip up, and that is totally okay. In fact, it is welcomed. Through the failures, you will learn. Today, I'm going to teach you the binge eating cycle. This explains kind of how binge eating happens and why it happens again and again and again, and why it feels worse every single time. There are 4 steps in this cycle. After I break down every single step for you, I'm going to give you a little action tool for you to go and apply and practice so that you can see change. Because change only happens through action. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. So stay tuned, make some notes, and make a promise to yourself that you don't have to be perfect, but you just have to give it a crack. So let's get into it. First of all, the binge eating cycle is broken down into 4 parts. Part 1 is the trigger. Part 2 is the cover-up. Part 3 is the false bliss, and then part 4 is the hangover. Let's start with part 1, the trigger. Whenever a binge occurs, there's always something that triggers it, something where it starts. It's usually some sort of heightened level of stress, some sort of emotional discomfort, something that we don't want to feel, that we don't want to face. We're triggered into that thing that just feels too much to handle, and we don't have the tools or don't know how to handle it or just don't want to. And so we turn to the easier thing, which is food. The trigger is where the cycle starts. If you can identify the trigger, then you can nip the cycle in the bud. Now remember, it's not easy. Change never is. It's so much easier to stay comfortable and stay with what you know than to push yourself to do something different. But I want to invite you to lean into that discomfort, to know that you're okay. Life is not roses and peaches and rainbows all the time. But even in those discomfort, even in that darkness, there are gifts. So don't be afraid of it, and learn that it's okay to ask for help and to lean on the people around you. So that's part 1, the trigger. It is the thing that brings up some sort of emotional upheaval, some sort of stress, something that we don't want to feel or deal with. Part 2 is the cover-up. This is where the binge occurs, we've been triggered and all these feelings are coming up and all these things that are overwhelming, we don't want to feel them, we don't know how to deal with them, and usually we're not even really aware of them because we've just been so good at pushing them down. And so then we cover up these feelings, we push them down, we suppress them with food. When you cover up, when you binge, all the energy or the anxiety or everything that's running around your body, all of that energy is drawn away from your nervous system and sent to your digestive system to help digest the food that you have just ingested. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Part 2 is where the binge occurs to avoid the uncomfortable feelings. So we've got part 1, the trigger. All the uncomfortable feelings are triggered, they come up, they're in our face, we're like, oh my God, what do I do with this? Then we go on to part 2, the cover up, and we binge and we push those feelings down. We take all that energy out of our nervous system and put it into our digestive system. Then we go on to part 3, the false bliss. This is where we just feel good for a while, we feel calm. All that stress and anxiety is gone, all that energy has been pulled out of our nervous system. We're now feeling okay. This can last anywhere between like 30 seconds to a couple of hours. We just feel all right. The pressure, that original tension has been relieved. Then we move on to part 4, where we realize that the bliss that we felt was all a lie because those crappy feelings start to come back. We go on to the hangover. Much like when you've had a big night out and you're feeling a bit like worse for wear, same happens with your hangover from a binge. The feelings of guilt start to come in. Then you think, oh, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to be really strict. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to make up for this, whatever. The crappy feelings of regret and guilt and everything start to come in. And that in itself can be enough to create that emotional upheaval again, where we are triggered again and we go through the cycle again and again and again. Every time the hangover feels a little bit worse, we feel a little bit more guilty, we push ourselves a bit harder, the trigger is even more intense, and we go through again and again and again. So just to recap that really simply for you, we got 1, the trigger. All these emotions are brought up, all of this tension and stress and anxiety and things that are uncomfortable that we don't want to deal with, or we just simply don't know how to deal with them, come up. And we freak out, and so we go and cover it up with the binge. We push it all down, suppress. We then feel okay for a little bit. It's all covered up, it's all good. But then the guilt comes in. We start to feel hungover, we start to feel crappy, we feel that heavy feeling in our stomach. And we think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I feel like crap. I feel fat. I feel bloated. I feel sick. And then the cycle starts again. So with this, your simple but not easy step that I want to give you, your action step that I want you to take, that throughout this video series, I want you to focus on this first. Come back to the other videos if you need to, is to notice your triggers. It might be the same thing every time. It could be different things every time. Notice your triggers and figure out how to heal those triggers without food. For example, a big trigger for me used to be feeling lonely. And I would turn to food for comfort. And I would eat to hide or to pull away from that loneliness. Or I'd be bored. And instead of going and finding something that was truly fun and fulfilling, I would get that excitement, that fun from food, from eating naughty foods, things that I shouldn't be eating. And ooh, like, this is exciting. Or for some people, it can be things like anxiety. They feel so anxious and they don't know how to deal with it, but eating like calms them down because again, it draws that energy out of the nervous system. It can be many different things. If you've been through a trauma, something I see often is with people who struggle with PTSD, that sort of stuff. Notice your triggers. It can even be something as simple as feeling cold and wanting hot chips because it makes you feel warm. Any discomfort that triggers you wanting to eat is usually going to be a trigger. Pay attention to those triggers, note them down in your phone, and start to find ways to heal them. Like, instead of going to food for comfort, finding out how to comfort yourself truly. Why do I feel uncomfortable? Why do I feel lonely? Why do I feel bored? And how can I truly fulfill those things? That is the first and big step to helping to heal your relationship with food. And a bonus is that it gives you a more fulfilling, juicy life. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please message me on our Instagram page, Bliss Fitness Oz AUS, or on our Facebook page, Bliss Fitness Australia. I love you guys. I trust that this serves you, and I look forward to seeing you in part 2.